Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much once again for joining us today. Christina and I, we're very happy to be back with Sonia, and we had a lot of great feedback the last time we did the presentation. So we adjusted it of the needs and the requests we received. I'm gonna get started with the presentation, and then Christina is gonna join us. And just a little bit about ourselves. So we started MyValue Solution about a year and a half ago, and we help clients with pre and post arrival services and a start into your new life here in Canada. And as you can see, there's our lovely pictures and our names, and just for your reference. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about the structure. So we're gonna start first with the 1-bedroom apartment with a single person coming to Canada and the pricing. And then we're gonna switch over to a family of 4 with 2 children, age 5 and 9, 2-bedroom apartment. And then we're going to switch to a family of 4. So we have a variance of different options, and we're going to break it down for you. We have also added on different cities after the request we had last time. And this will give you a good idea where and how to spend and budget your stay here in Canada. So I'm going to get started with the accommodation. So as you can see in the Excel sheet, that we budgeted for Vancouver about 1,900, Calgary it's 1,200, Regina 1,000. So you can see the different prices. So we did an average. The average of rent comes into place in regards to high and low season. So sometimes you find a good deal because you may come through the low season, what is usually the winter time, up till March, and then April usually till October, sometimes November is high season. So prices vary a little bit on low and high season. So keep in mind that the prices are an average at this point for rent. Then, of course, if you rent an apartment in Canada, you have to budget for rental insurance. So that rental insurance covers you for specific, let's say, if there's a flood in the apartment. So if anything is, broken or anything is, not do anymore, something happened. This is the standard price of a rental insurance. Of course, you can always go higher up. So if you do have values that are very expensive, or you brought things you want to insure more, you can of course always up that. But this is just the standard insurance you might want to consider, and this is mandatory. This is not something you cannot choose. This is something you have to get if you start renting. So we also noted down the utilities, cable, and internet. As you can see, utilities are water, hydro, and gas. Depends on the apartment. Again, sometimes it's included, sometimes it's not included. So the average of that, you can see, starts between $50 and $100. Depends on the usage, how much you use as well. The cable is TV. So if you do choose to get cable TV, most of you might want to just opt in with Netflix and Amazon, but sometimes it's also nice to see local TV's shows as well. So just for your reference, that could be ticket item you can save on. But if you wish to have that, it starts at about $65 and it ends up at roughly $100. For the internet also is starting at $55, again, in different areas, and it can go up to $100. Again, this all depends on which provider you choose. I find, coming from Europe, that TV, internet, and phone expenses in Canada are very expensive for my taste. So I had to get used to it when I first came to Canada, but this is roughly the amount you should budget in. Another item you should also think about it is appliances. So when you come to Canada, most of the apartments, 99.9%, have already the 5 appliances included. So if you think about moving to Canada and taking your washing machine or dryer, any of that, leave it at home. don't bring it, because it's not the same volume you need here. And also it is in the apartments included. So you have your washer and dryer, you have your fridge, your stove, and your microwave. So that's of the items you can leave at home. There is no need to bring that, but you can always verify with the provider, with the landlord, if that's included. So you can always make sure, but as I said, 99.9% it's included. Then we're gonna go on to the food. Food is I guess the second most expensive ticket item when you live in an apartment and you want to eat. So we budget about 500 to 600 per month. And this amount is just based on our references. Also, food, you may, in different countries, may be cheaper, but in Canada, food can be really expensive. Just also, again, it's depending on low and high season. So in the summer, vegetables are, of course, a little bit more cheaper, but in the winter, they can be really expensive because they're coming from Mexico or from California or from other areas in this world. And, depends on your taste, it could be a little bit more expensive. Then we're gonna move on to transportation before Christina takes over for the school and childcare. Transportation, we rent with, again, one person, depends on the public transportation. So you're taking the metro, the bus, or the tram, or whatever is available in that particular city. And we started, again, sorry about that, noting down the information, how much it costs at this time. So prices vary every year. The cost might raise a little bit, depends on the provider. So this is the average price what we got in 2020. Christina, I just bring it over to you.
Sure. Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Christina. So let's move on to school and childcare, which in this case we are not going to cover because we are talking about a single person. We will talk about it when we are looking at families. So for a single person, of course, there are no expenses. Now, if you would like to have a membership, let's say to one of the recreational centers like YMCA, it's a very popular one in Canada. They have locations across the country. And as you can see, the membership fees for one person, they vary from different cities. So like in Vancouver, you can get a membership for $35. In Calgary, it's $75. You can get cheaper gym memberships for sure. You may not have exactly this type of facilities or not so many locations, but YMCA is a really good starting point to consider. Now for entertainment, we calculated around $200 a month that you will spend on grabbing a coffee, eating out, going to the movies. $200 is really not a big budget. It's very easy to spend a lot more than that in Canada. And then your phone charges. So this is for your cell phone, for your mobile phone. Typically, well, we put here from $65 to $100 for this. You can get unlimited data, unlimited callings within Canada, maybe even within North America. So really everything is included that you might want. Of course, not international calls, but most people, you don't use the phone anymore for international calls. We are all using WhatsApp or Skype or Messenger on alternative programs. For personal care, we budgeted $100. Again, $100 is not a lot if you go at least once a month, let's say to the hairdressers, or ladies, you go and get your nails done or anything like that. But at least one or two services you should be able to get for $100. And then, so these are monthly expenses for the first 6 months. So why we put it monthly is because you can have a good idea that for a month, approximately you will need anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500. Now, later on, as you settle down a little bit, maybe some of these expenses can reduce, but probably you will keep these expenses for a longer time. Now, we also added some one-time purchases. So when you move to Canada, unless you're coming from a country where you had winter before, like serious winter, you will have to invest into winter gear. Like, you will realize it's not optional. Even if you live in Vancouver, let's say, where it barely ever snows, it can be still, minus couple of degrees, and it's a humid weather, and it can feel actually chilly and cold. So you will need some winter gears. We budgeted a little bit more for the other parts of Canada, just because, we have a lot of snow and a lot colder weather, so you will need more gear. But even for Vancouver, at least $200 per person, you have to budget. Now for the furniture. This rent and the accommodation that we budgeted here is for an unfurnished unit. So you will need to buy a furniture when you arrive. Now, again, $3,000. You might be able to get furniture cheaper if you go and look for a secondhand furniture. Also, you can spend a lot more money than this if you wanted to furnish a one-bedroom apartment. But let's say if you take something like IKEA, you can probably furnish a one-bedroom apartment from $3,000. Now, we also added the option if you want to drive. And so being in Canada, the distances are quite big, and public transportation is not necessarily reaching to every single part of the city. So there is a basic, metro lines and bus lines and such. But in some cities, it's limited until what time they actually go. So for instance, in Calgary, you might have your C train working until 10, 11 o'clock at night, but the buses from the C train station, they stop going at 7 o'clock in the evening to your house. So if you live, let's say 5-10 kilometers from the C train line and you're trying to go home at 8 o'clock in the evening, you might need to consider that public transportation may not fulfill all your needs, and you might consider a car. So for that purpose, we put down very basic idea for, $300 at least to consider as a monthly payment for your car. And then for your car insurance, you need to consider as a brand new driver as well, $200. So this is how it looks like for a single person to consider charges and expenses when you really first time you come to Canada. And we're going to move now and look at how a family's expenses would look like.
Well, thank you, Christina. So just gonna again go quickly over the ticket items, just the ones who are a little bit more, showcasing in regards to a family and what's considered. And Christina is gonna talk about the school and childcare, and I apologize. Makes sense that one person doesn't need to have childcare included, except they have a child and come with a child, but at that purpose, you can absolutely reference to the numbers. Christina is going to talk about it. So as you can see, the rent compared to the one bedroom increases because with 2 adults, 2 children, we of course jump into a 2-bedroom apartment. And as you can see, it starts about $1,500. And Vancouver is one of the more expensive one, as well as Toronto and Ottawa. Ottawa, where I'm actually located, was not as expensive in the beginning, but it actually wrapped up very quickly in the last couple of years. And it could be also, a little bit more expensive as other cities. And again, keep in mind, this is depends on high and low season. So you might be able to find something more cheaper, or it could be even more expensive, depends on. Then again, the rent assurance will remain the same. Again, except you have any other big items you want to insure, but this will remain the same. The percentage of the utilities also will change because, again, you're using more water, more hydro with your children and being in an apartment. The internet will remain the same. And then we put down the average of a food grocery. And this is an average what I actually, Christina, we spend easily $1,200 a month for a family of 4. $1,200 is actually really, really reasonable. It could be even a little bit more. Again, depends on where you go grocery shopping and what items you prefer. Even if you just go to ethnic places, your home countries, things, they have to be delivered here, they have to be produced. That could be a little bit more expensive. So if you like that, you spend a little bit more, but the general idea is that you spend roughly $1,000 to $1,200 a month for that. Public transportation, again, children of a specific age, in this case we said 5 and 9, they also have to pay for public transportation. Of course, the rate is cheaper, but you have to consider that this amount will come from your bank account when you want to take the public transportation in the city. And I'll pass it on to Christina for the childcare.
Thank you very much. I just like to just say something about public transportation. So yes, children do pay for public transportation, but actually until age 6, it's for free. So in this case, we only included one student pass, you could say, and 2 adults. Just sorry to clarify. Now about school and childcare. So most of you might know that public schools in Canada, they are free, so there is no tuition fee. So that's true, public schools are free, you don't pay for tuition, but there are still a lot of expenses when you have children, especially when both parents are working, that you need to consider. So first of all, children up to the age of 5, they do not go to school. There are options for childcare, for daycares, for private homes, for also like public childcares, but you have to pay for it. And even when they start school at the age of 5, they are only starting part-time for the first year in kindergarten. So throughout all this time, you will need to make sure that somebody takes care of your children if you are working. So let's go through the expenses that you need to consider. So first of all, there is something called a student fee. These student fees are, well, for one kid, I would say you need to consider $300 approximately a year that you will end up paying. Depending on which province you are. In some provinces, it's a lot less. In Alberta, where I am, I pay approximately $300 after I have 2 children. So these fees are, let's say, I don't know, paper, pen, books, whatever they are using in school. Kids here, typically, they don't buy a bunch of books at the beginning of the year or a bunch of notebooks like in some other countries. They just get kind of material throughout the year at school. If they have a guest speaker, if they have an artist, for example, that comes and works with the children for a week, all of these expenses are extra that we have to pay. The next expense is the busing expense. So again, in some provinces in Canada, like in Ontario or in Quebec or even in Nova Scotia, you do not pay for busing. It's free. But in some provinces, like Alberta, you are paying for busing for your children to go and come back from school. So if that's, the route that you're going to choose, you need to consider this expense. Then we have before and after school care. So in this case, we consider that one child is going to still be almost in a full-time daycare because it's only 5 years old and doesn't have school full-time. And the other child, older one, will still go to childcare maybe before or after. So of course, if you are choosing childcare, then you are probably not going to be choosing busing because you're going to be dropping your kids at childcare and picking them up in the afternoon. So it's one or the other. Busing only goes during regular school hours. It doesn't go 2 hours before school or 2 hours after. So, but you have to consider, like if both parents are working, where is going to happen to the kids? Is one of them going to be in full-time childcare and in between goes for like a couple of hours to kindergarten? The other kid is going to be like, before school, maybe for an hour or 2 and after school for an hour or 2. And these can be, like heavy expenses. Then for recreation and sport, we took here family membership, again, YMCA. So you can see that in some provinces like Vancouver, it can be very cheap, $70 for a month. In Alberta, it can be almost $200. So it depends on which province you are in. Then entertainment, again, for maybe eating out, going to the movies, getting that popcorn and drinks and coffees, $400 a month, easy. Or if you're going to the zoo and you pay, entrance fees, $400 is not a lot of money for a family to spend in a month for entertainment. Then for the phone, we consider that one person is going to take a full package, and the second person, it's like an additional package to the main one, so it's going to be slightly cheaper. But of course, the price is increasing if it's two people having cell phone plan. Then for personal care, we move from $100 to $250. Again, it's not like a super high budget, but you can manage from $250 at the beginning. Winter gear, it's the same thing. It's a one-time purchase, but now it's gonna be 4 people who will need boots and hats and jackets and such. And then for the furniture, we consider that $4,000 is a decent amount to furnish at the beginning your 2-bedroom apartment. For the car payment and the insurance, we consider that it's only going to be 1 car. So nothing much has changed. Now let's see a family of 5 or more.
Well, thank you, Christina. And I think I'll just, as you can see, the prices just go up a little bit, again, into the rent, because now we consider the 3-bedroom rental. You can also rent, I just wanted to mention that you can also rent furnished and unfurnished. So it depends on what your preference is. That's something you can consider as well. So when I came, I can speak on my case, and Christina can tell you her story a little bit. So when I came, we actually decided against bringing our furniture, and we chose to rent a furnished apartment first and then moved into an unfurnished, because for us it was cheaper to actually leave our belongings behind instead of shipping them overseas from Germany. It was more expensive at the time, so we did a little bit of the budgeting and the allowance, and we went shopping at IKEA and other stores where we furnished our apartment later. So that's something also to keep in mind, that you should evaluate and check and price out the budget, how much you want to spend on that, so you can save a lot of money just not even bringing your belongings here to Canada. If you do have something really important or specific furniture, like, you know, family history, that's something you should consider, of course, but just keep it in mind. And again, the food grocery will increase a little bit. The transportation that Christina mentioned, that also goes up. And I guess I'll pass it on again one more time to Christina for the school.
Thank you. Yeah, about shipping your items, I can tell you that I moved here from the Middle East, from Dubai, and I did not do my research about, you know, how much thing actually costs in Canada, though I was here for 2 months the summer prior to that, but I didn't think I will be moving here anytime. So we paid around $10,000 to ship all of our stuff from Dubai. And it was nothing like, you know, very crazy arts or anything like that. Now, I can tell you one thing. For instance, the barbecue that we brought here, the charcoal barbecue, we were not allowed to use in Canada because of the condo regulations. So that was a waste of money to bring here. Any electronics, I could not really use them here. I had to buy this transmission or something because of the voltage. So most of the stuff was a waste of money to bring them here. Then for furniture, whatever is queen and king size in other countries is not the same size in North America. So the bed frame that I brought, I didn't bring the mattress. I could not use it because the mattress did not fit with the same size. So I can tell you honestly that I wasted a lot of money bringing my stuff to Canada. If I would have just taken that $10,000, I would have saved money if I just buy my stuff here again. But that was my experience, live and learn. Anyway, looking at childcare. So if you have, you know, like let's say 3 children, in this case, you know, one is age 4, 7, and 10. So the child who is 4 years old, if both parents are working, will require full-time childcare. So not just part-time, because it's not even kindergarten. So again, these prices that you see for before and after school care, we calculated that one child is going to take full childcare, and the other two are going to need before and after school care. So of course, the more children you have, the more you're gonna end up paying for childcare. If they are, below 5 years old, they will need full-time. If they are 5 or older, then it turns into part-time. And children cannot stay legally at home alone in Canada until they are 12 years old. So they will require childcare up to that point if both of you are working. Now, after they are 12 years old, they can start staying at home alone and go to school alone if you are comfortable with that. And also, I think if they are 13 and they have finished a babysitting course, they can actually start babysit for their siblings. Now, I tell you honestly that my daughter, she's 12 years old. She's almost going to be 13. And we were in a situation this year because of online schooling that at one point older children were online schooling and younger children were still in school. So I had to leave her alone at home for a certain amount of time until I was dropping the younger one to school. And I was not feeling comfortable at the beginning. By now we kind of got used to it, but it was really kind of, a lot of families, they don't necessarily leave a 12-year-old alone at home for the full day if they are, let's say, online schooling. And it did cause a lot of issues that families were not ready while the government thought it was time for them. So another for sports and recreations and entertainment, we just pretty much increased a little bit, the budget for everything, as now we are adding an extra person. But the basic idea, it still stayed the same. Nothing changed, that's just the amount. So thank you.
That's great. Perfect. So we come extra to the online webinars and learning path. So we do have also the information on our website. So if anybody of you need anything, you can always go there, and our membership tool, it's free of charge. So you can always read this up or just listen to the webinar with ACCESS Canada. If you have any questions after the webinar, you can always reach out to us as well. And there are our information. And at this point, please do write your questions in the chat box, and I'll just pass it on to Sonia. And Sonia is gonna go through the Q&A questions, and we're gonna answer in the last half an hour or so. We're gonna answer all your questions.
Thank you so much, ladies. Yes, we'll leave the screen on, so the contact information is right in front of you, and you can start typing your questions into the Q&A tab. I'll start with, okay, so if someone's interested in, so this webinar will be recorded, so you can definitely watch it again after. And if you've missed a few slides, you can always pause on that slide and take a look. And if there's a particular slide anybody wants to talk about right now, you can just let us know, and then we can go to the slide and explain further. All right. So I'm just reading questions here. I don't know if you ladies would know, but what would the monthly expenses be with 2 dogs?
I'm not really sure. I have to say, I would have to look it up.
I can say because I have a dog.
Yeah, I do too. So it does get pretty expensive. So Rebecca, I'll let you answer. If I have anything else to add, I'll go ahead.
Sure. For a dog, can you just verify if you think of bringing a dog to Canada, or just how much a dog is in Canada? Like if you want to purchase a dog, or if you want to, just to get a few more ideas of if you want to bring a dog, or is it in Canada? In Canada itself, there is a registration you have to do with the city you're living in. So there is a registration fee per year you have to purchase. It's usually on the city webpage. The medicine just for the vaccination per year, heartworm, the Borax, what they call it, it's about $400 for our dog per year when they get their shots for the ticks as well. And then the food can, again, depends on the dog. If you have a big dog or a small dog, ours cost roughly about, I would say, $100. He's a mid-sized dog. And then the vet bills, that depends on the health of the dog. But this is roughly, I would say. Sonia, how about you?
Yeah, I have a puppy. She's a year old, and we did get her during when COVID started, and prices have skyrocketed. So if you are thinking of getting a dog, any dog that was $500 or $1,000 before COVID could easily be up to $4,000, $5,000. It's like there's like a lottery system to buy dogs now. But yes, vet bills can be, I think the first year is the most expensive because you have to get the initial vaccines and all that for dogs. And then food also depends on, what kind of food you want to feed your dog. My dog is on a raw diet, so that it can get pretty expensive. I have to keep it in the fridge. So yeah, it is all up to you. And you know what, this kind of research you could easily kind of do online. So if you know what kind of diet you want to give your dog, you can easily look up how much it could cost. I think I feed my dog Big Country Raw, and you can actually go and calculate the cost of your food every month on their website. So yeah, there are lots of different helpful tools. Next question was, would an unfit furnished apartment include electrical appliances? I'll let you answer that, Rebecca.
Yes, it does.
All right.
To most of the time. Yeah, most of the time, to 99%.
Yeah, like the stove and fridge and washer dryer.
Yes, but there are some apartments, they may not have it. So depends on which area you are. You always want to double check with the landlord. There are some, some landlords, they may not, but in most of the big cities in the provinces, it is a go. But if you are in a rural area, they may change that. So you might just really want to ask them beforehand, since you now know that the top five appliances are supposed to be included.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, typically the fridge, the dishwasher, the stove, the washer dryer is included. In some apartments can be the microwave. It depends on the apartment building, and usually window covering and the built-in cupboards. Because in Canada, typically there are built-in cupboards and not, you don't bring your own cupboard. I mean, you can if you don't have enough space, but that's typically how apartments, houses are built. But as Rebecca said, it's usually mentioned, and this is something you can find out in advance. But so far for me, everywhere I lived, this was always included.
Thank you. And could you ladies go back to the prices? People are asking if they're monthly or yearly prices.
Oh, this is monthly. We based it on monthly prices. The only difference is the one-time purchases on the bottom. That's the one-time purchases when you start coming. The winter gear, the furniture, that's the one-time payment. You have to, as an initial cost, and that's why we separated it. But the from the slide seeing, starting with the accommodation up till minimalist, the personal care, and then the summary, that's the monthly budget per family or per individual.
Thank you. Would you be able to talk about living expenses in St. John or New Brunswick for 2 adults and 1 child?
Christina, do you want to take this?
I'm here. Yeah, so typically I would say that you can just follow Halifax. So it's not going to be more than there, but we don't have it prepared exactly what the expenses are. We usually post on our LinkedIn page and social media, like comparisons, between the provinces, but we don't have it ready. If somebody is particularly interested in that, they can always send us an email with their details and what they would like to know, and we would be happy to let them know.
Sounds good. Thank you for pointing that out. So Rebecca, this might be a personal question. How do you compare living in Germany versus Canada? Just like maybe 2-3 things off the top of your head.
For me personally, best decision ever. I came as a over the skilled worker program in 2010, and it took me about 2 years at the time before the government changed their approach in 2016, and the process got easier. But at that time, actually, I came over. Don't get me wrong, it is hard the beginning, so it will take you about a year or two to really fully get settled and integrate yourself into the society in Canada. But everybody's very welcoming. There's just a lot of resources you can take. There's a lot of organizations such as ours or ACCES Canada who can help you with your settling, you know, finding jobs, doing things. I personally could not see myself moving full-time back to Germany. I love Canada for different reasons, and I'm happy here now for the last 11, 12 years, and I couldn't be happier.
Thank you for sharing that. As a newcomer, you know, people don't have credit history. Is it common that people have to pay 6 months rent in advance because they don't have credit, or are they able to pay month to month?
I'll speak to that, and Christina, feel free to add on. So in general, it is actually not legal that a landlord should, you know, that you have to pay up for 6 months. That's the legal part. But it is challenging, and we have on our website, especially because Christina and I, we worked in this industry, it is challenging because think about it. When you come to Canada and you don't have a job, and you may not have established a credit history, a credit score, and all that. You don't have a job, you may have your funds or still in your home country, you haven't transferred the money to a Canadian bank account. Your proof of income is not there. So it's very challenging to find that particular landlord who's going to give you the trust that you have maybe money in the home country, but you don't have enough here to cover for the next 6 months or 1 year your rent, and then you don't have a job yet. So when you go to think about it, when you go to your home country, how hard it would be to rent an apartment if you don't have an income, if you don't have an employer, or if you don't, you know, show that or prove that you actually can pay for things. There's always options. If you come, and that's my recommendation, and I'm pretty sure Christina's going to add something on due to her experience. We recommend that people stay in a furnished apartment first, because then you can start your process for the paperwork here in Canada, your health card, your social insurance number, and all that. And in the time you're staying in a furnished apartment, you can also start applying, of course, for jobs. Usually you find within 3 months till 6 months a job. So that will give you a better stand in actually going for the unfurnished option. Nevertheless, to say, you of course can try to go to an unfurnished, but it can happen that they're gonna ask you to maybe pay first and last month's rent, that they ask for somebody who can bow for you, like a family member you may have here in Canada. But again, there's also specific rules for that. If it's a family member who has their own business, they don't like to see that. They really wanted to see somebody who has a stable job, who has an income of proof. So if you do have a family member, anybody relative who is self-employed, it doesn't really count. So if you have somebody who actually really has a stable job, has an employer behind their back who can vouch for you, that's the best option to go into the unfurnished, where of course your rent will be much cheaper. And I'll pass it on to Christina.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. So about asking for 6 months in advance, so generally renting as a newcomer in Canada. I mean, there are two sides. One side is whoever is renting, you know, the apartment or house out to you, they want to make sure that you will be able to pay monthly. Now, if you don't have a job in Canada yet, which is very normal for every newcomer, though some people, they come for a job, or if you don't have a credit history yet, because of course you just arrived, you don't have yet, a Canadian credit card or anything like that, then you don't have a credit history, then they don't know if you will be able to pay your rent or not. So in some cases, yes, they will offer the option that, why don't you pay, 6 months in advance. I don't think it's about that much about legality. It's more about, them being comfortable whether you will be able to pay or not. Rebecca was right about, starting in a furnished apartment. It might be more expensive at the beginning, but accommodation providers like corporate housing companies that offer furnished options at the beginning, if you have an international credit card and you are able to pay on a monthly basis through this credit card, then they don't ask for an employment, a letter of employment or for a credit history. So this can give you the opportunity. You still pay on a monthly basis. Yes, you pay a little bit more, but gives you the opportunity to open that bank account when you arrive to Canada, start your Canadian credit card, even if it's just $500, limit, but at least you can start building a credit history. And by the time, you have been doing this for maybe 3 months or 6 months, you build some credit history, potentially you have now a job in Canada, and then you can go and rent, longer term without paying in advance for 6 months. So I would say if that's really the situation that, you don't have these papers, furnished apartments might really be your best option.
I just want to add on one more thing to that, and then we can go on to the next question. I just had a call actually with a few banks who actually stay in touch with us as well, because due to the information for the newcomers coming to Canada. And you can actually, due to COVID, they opened themselves up. Actually, you can now connect the bank in Canada, and they have specific programs for newcomers, opening bank accounts before they even come to Canada. So if you want, you can reach out to the banks. Most of the banks like RBC or Scotiabank, they have already newcomer programs in place where you can set up all this banking cards, accounts, transfer money from your home country to Canada for really cheap. Instead of going to another provider, you can set this up beforehand, so you don't even have to go all through the struggle. And with that being said, they also mentioned to me that they make already with you appointments at the bank directly. So you get an associate and they will take care of you with all your needs and your family needs. So that's a complete new approach. At the time when I came, that wasn't possible, but now they do have this in place due to COVID. So feel free to reach out to the bank you choose. Again, I had a few conversations last week, but there are already fantastic programs out there for newcomers coming to Canada in each city. I'll pass it on to Sonia.
Oh yeah, no, thank you, ladies. Next question, probably a very important question here is, do you know any budget-friendly options for quarantining after landing?
Well, the quarantine question after landing, it depends again where you are arriving and what your plans are. So if you're not staying in a hotel, which is of course, not the most budget-friendly option, and you are looking for, let's say, a furnished apartment that we were just talking about, you need to take it into consideration that these options, they don't necessarily work as a hotel, and you cannot necessarily just book them by the night. So I think what you need to first figure out is where you are landing. So if we are landing somewhere like British Columbia or Ontario, these provinces have minimum 30-night stay requirements. Now even Quebec getting there. So it might be challenging for you to just rent something for 14 days budget friendly. That's number one. Number two is that are you looking for something only for 14 days, or are you looking for something, where you want to stay potentially for the first 3 months until you settle down in a more permanent opportunity and more permanent accommodation? So it might be more budget friendly, instead of 14 nights, to rent something for 3 months if that's where you plan to stay until, let's say, you get all your government documents and apply for all the services, and you figure out, where you're going to end up living and working. So I would say it really depends on a lot of different things. And what is budget friendly? That's another thing. What is your budget? People don't necessarily have the same budget, but if it was me and I don't have my next accommodation yet, I would book something for 3 months that includes your first 14 days quarantine and then another 2.5 months, so that I can settle down in Canada and then make a decision what is going to be my best option moving forward in terms of accommodation. I don't know, Rebecca, what's your opinion?
Absolutely, I agree. Just as a reference quickly on the site, due to COVID, so currently you have to stay minimum 3 nights at a hotel. It depends on how quick they are with the test. So you can just land in 4 different cities. One of them is Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, and Montreal. So international flights just come to this particular airports at the moment. So you have to book an apartment before, a hotel who is actually approved by the government of Canada here in Canada. And you have to stay there for minimum 3 nights, and you have to pay for this. And after that, you can go to a location where you have to isolate another 11 days. If that's a family member home or in a furnished apartment or another option hotel, but this is where you have to isolate another 11 days and wait that you don't have COVID. So there is another testing involved. So keep in mind, if you're traveling through COVID, if that's not the case and the borders will be opening hopefully maybe in the fall of this year, that's my personal opinion, then this might be not the case. But as of right now, 3 days is a minimum requirement, again, at the 4 airports, and then you can move on to your permanent location. And there is another 11 days you have to isolate you and yourself and your family before you can step out and do things. So make sure that you have this in place before coming to Canada, that you have somebody who can bring you food, who can set you up for that apartment for the 11 days remaining. Over to Sonia.
Thank you. What about like clothing? Do people wear formal all the time, casual to work? Like how does that work in the workplace?
I think overall in Canada, I can say it's the most casual place I have ever lived. So, I mean, workplace, it depends. It's not really formal, maybe, business casual, but generally speaking, I think in Canada, people dress really casually.
Agreed.
Would you be able to shed some insight on car insurance for a new driver in Canada?
So about car insurance, it's an interesting thing here. If you arrive to Canada and you get your local license, and then you buy a car and then you need to insure it. If you cannot prove it with proper documentation to the insurance company that you had an insurance plan before that for a certain amount of years, hopefully without not too many claims, then your car insurance can be sky high. So if they think that you are a brand new driver who doesn't have a driving history, you never had an insurance policy before, then you can consider $3,000 to $5,000 per year for a car insurance. And you really need to have the proper documentation to prove that you have a history. Now, if you have some history and they can see, but let's say you never had a car insurance plan on your own name, you can still take it as at least $2,000 for the first year. Like I was driving for 10 years before I moved to Canada, and I didn't have the documentations required because I didn't know that I'm going to need this. And I waited my first year on an international driver's license before I started the whole process. But because I already had a couple of years, at least in Canada, that they had as a record, I still started with $2,000 the first year I got my own car insurance here. I don't know if you need more information, but yeah, there's just a brief about car insurances.
Thank you. And when you talk about car payments, like, are you talking about rental cars or car loans?
No, we were considering that somebody is going to buy a car, so a loan, not a rental car.
Thank you. I'm just going over some questions here.
Sonia, just to verify on the car thing, if you do
Yes.
think about car rental, you have to, when you do a car rental or share, like there's sometimes in big cities you can share a car, like share car driving, sharing or something. Then usually with that, when you rent it, you pay an extra $20 for that day on car insurance, just to give you an idea. Some of the credit cards within the banks, they cover also this kind of cost. So when you go to a specific bank and have a specific credit card, but this is another topic, but you can look into this with the banking, then that's what we used. We had a specific credit card who covered also the insurance for the car rental as well. But this comes with the specific credit cards you can get here in Canada. So you can look into this. Credit cards have specific features, as sometimes they have a cashback. They have also a point system where you can later on purchase things or pay for flights. So look into the banking for sure, into the credit cards when you decide. Some of them also give money back for groceries. So it depends on what you need, just to add on to this. So there's a little bit of research to do for sure.
Thank you. Can we just clarify the age of children that are allowed to be left alone? Someone's asking about having a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old and wondering if they only need a babysitter for the 3-year-old. So maybe we can talk about how old your kids can be to be able to leave them alone.
They can stay at home legally alone once they are 12 years old. So the question about if there is a 3 and a 7-year-old, they both need a babysitter. I mean, it can be one babysitter for both of them. I'm pretty sure that one babysitter can handle 2 kids, but they both need supervision for sure.
Thank you. Just taking a look at some questions that have already been answered. Rental insurance, is it based on how many people live in the household, or is it just per household?
No, it's per household, and it's based on the coverage that the rental place is going to have. So it's $1 or $2 million, right, that the place needs to be covered for in case, as Rebecca mentioned, there is a flooding or there are some damages either to the apartment or to the other apartment. So let's say if the place gets flooded and they flood also the apartment underneath them, then, you know, the apartment that is underneath those damages needs to be covered from the rental insurance. So it's based on the amount.
Thank you. Would you recommend purchasing secondhand furniture or cars?
For the car, I would recommend secondhand cars. I mean, they are, most of them, you can get them certified. There is extended warranty on them. And I have a secondhand car and I never had a problem with it. In terms of furniture, I think it's a personal choice, how you feel about it. So, and of course, your budget as well. Some people are very comfortable with secondhand furniture. I see it all the time here in Canada, even Canadians. They are always on Kijiji, right? And trying to get a deal on something that is maybe barely used or something. So a lot of people are comfortable with secondhand furniture and some people are not. So I think it's a personal choice.
Thank you, ladies. I am going to give you a chance to wrap up as we're towards the end of our webinar here. And for those who have some unanswered questions, you can definitely reach out to Rebecca and Christina. I think they'll put their contact slide up so you can take a look. There you go. And then ladies, I'll let you end with your ending remark.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, Sonia, for having us. We really appreciate it. And again, we are very happy to answer any questions later on. I'll pass it on to Christina.
Yes, thank you everybody for coming. And I see that there are still some questions in the Q&A. So please use our email address and send us your questions. We would be happy to answer them, or visit our website. You might find some information as well there. And I hope we will see you again in the future for another webinar. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, ladies.